Hi, my name is Zechariah Faszold. Thank you so much for listening to my book review on It's Your Ship by Michael Abrashoff. Abrashoff is a retired United States naval captain of the USS Benfold from 1997 to 1999. This time period coincides with the Persian Gulf crisis in which the United States squared off with Saddam Hussein. Again, Abrashoff is retired, but he still is in the consulting industry. Abrashoff took over command of this really low performing battleship that had high injuries. One of the metrics that was most important was the reenlistment rate, which was extremely low. During the ceremony where power was transferred between captains, Abrashoff noted that the crew was incredibly disrespectful to the outgoing captain. So he knew there was a pretty substantial cultural crisis on that he needed to address. So this book outlines ways that Abrashoff turned the Benfold into what he called the best damn ship in the Navy. There is no award, but by all metrics and measures, it was a very highly functioning battleship with a good culture and a 100% reenlistment rate. So this is transformational leadership. Abrashoff describes it as a grassroots leadership lesson. I think a couple of the tenets of the book were empowering subordinates, challenging traditions, and developing meaningful relationships. These come from the syllabus and are the course objectives. So Abrashoff did indeed have an adaptive problem. He challenged everything from the standard operating procedures to the cultural changes. He says formal leadership won't cut it. And he needs to win the respect of the crew. Um, Abrashoff exhibited several different leadership styles. I think the one that came out the most strong was his affiliative and democratic styles. I think Democrat was a tenet for Abrashoff. He really wanted to see uh, the input from the crew. So if there was an opportunity for something to change, he would put it to a vote, put it to the crew to decide. He was also extremely affiliative. He wanted to see the ship through the crew's eyes, and he was really relationship focused to the point where he actually interviewed and memorized all 310 sailors on board. I don't think Abrashoff completed the entire Kolb's learning cycle for self-development. He obviously had the experience. He reflected on some of his mistakes, and I think he was able to conceptualize a lot of his actions, but he didn't have an opportunity to experiment with them. He retired from the Navy immediately after his assignment on the Benfold. I think if he was given another command or decided not to retire, he probably would have experimented with a few things. There was no conflict in this book, so there was a couple of opportunities for conflict between him and his sailors, his superiors, and between the other captains. And I've outlined a couple of ways that Abrashoff could have been exhibited leadership styles. So, resistance by the sailors, I think, could have benefited from a coaching democratic and affiliative leadership styles by building those strong relationships, giving the sailors a sense of ownership and coaching and building them up. Resistance by the superior. The Navy is a legacy corporation and it's driven by norms and traditions. So I think an authoritative leadership style would have suited him really well by being able to clearly articulate the goals and the vision and then back it up by effective measures. I think the most amount of resistance he experienced was probably between him and the other captains. Abrashoff was a silo. He did this all himself. He could have engaged with others, but he didn't. I genuinely believe that Abrashoff was not very well liked, and probably the other captains felt threatened by him because he was performing so high. So I think he could have been a pace setter by setting the pace for the other captains. I think he could have used an opportunity to coach them. And then again, articulating his goals, I think would have suited him well in this challenge. Abrashoff had absolute authority on his book or on his boat, so it would think typical autocrat like military. Do as I say, or we might die kind of thing. So he had absolute authority. Abrashoff was also really self-aware, and you realize that he needed to earn the respect of the crew members before he felt like a leader. Sure, he could be an autocrat, right? But he needed to develop leadership and a rapport with the crew before he could do that. Political implications. Both of these things come from the text. He didn't really partner with anyone. He didn't really keep his opposition close. Again, he was completely siloed for most people. He did accept responsibility, however. He knew that the ship was struggling and he wanted to turn it around. He really modeled the behavior after some of his leaders, previous leader, including a guy named Perry, who was a very high-ranking admiral within the United States Navy. Managing expectations. The expectations were high. He says free people have a powerful incentive not to screw it up. And if that's not powerful, I don't know what else is. He was extremely powerful. Said he wanted to create a ship of 310 initiative takers. And he really focused on the issues by wanting to see the ship through his crew's eyes. Um, a couple of general thoughts. I wonder how Abrashoff's leadership style holds up outside of the vacuum of the military. I wonder if he was too trusting. So, for example, there was a story where he replaced bolts on the ship. I question that from an engineering perspective, if that was the right decision to make. I browsed the subreddit and people questioned if Abrashoff was legit. And nobody claimed to have worked for Abrashoff, but they all kind of chimed in with their own uh, poor leadership stories. And even if the general consensus was, even if Abrashoff claims to have done a fraction of what he's doing, people would have liked working for him just because of their own bad experiences. It was good. The book was good. It was relatable. There was a lot of things that I could take and immediately apply to my own workplace. But because of that conflict, the missing conflict between the crews, his leaders, and the other captains, I gave it a pretty low rating. If just a chapter or two would have really helped bolster the book. Couple of quick good bits and advice. Abrashoff, in his reflection, recommends the 360 evaluation. I like the Washington Post test. If what I'm doing ends up in the newspaper, how do I look? Do I look good or bad? And then Abrashoff had a pretty substantial portion of the book dedicated to diversity. He says that diverse teams are strong teams. Final recommendation. Pick a book that has conflict. Maybe stay away from the leadership books because the military is such a strong vacuum. Thanks.